Hello guys. I know it's been a while, but we back up and on today we'll be doing something quite different, right? For those of us that have been with us from the very beginning, remember that this bootcamp is split into different phases, and we are still currently in phase one. And we've touched on development environment setup, C# basics. We're currently working on C# basics, and the final um, topic we'll be discussing will be Git basics. However, I want us to digress a little bit and move away from the C# basics into the Git basics, right? Because Git is a crucial fundamental when it comes to software development. And without further ado, let's jump straight into the demonstration of how we integrate Git and GitHub into our workflow in software development. First off, let's discuss what is Git. So and Google what is Git. You can see Git is a free and open source distributed version control system designed to handle everything from small to very large projects with speed and efficiency. All what this technical jargon just means is Git just lets us track every changes we make into our code every step of the way on our local machine on our computer, right? And let's move into what is GitHub. So GitHub is a cloud-based platform that acts as a digital hub for storing, managing, and collaborating on software development projects using Git version control. So the difference between Git and GitHub is that Git runs locally on our machine, whilst GitHub stores our Git repository online or in the web. That's basically the major difference between Git and GitHub. And for me to demonstrate how it works, let us create a new console app and try it out. Now let's create a console application so we'll be able to demonstrate Git and GitHub in practice. And to create a console application, if you're on a Mac, you can just type this simultaneously, Shift Command P, and click on New Project and search for console application. Click this and choose where you want to save it on your machine. Name the project intro to GitHub, to Git and GitHub, either press enter, solution file, create project. Now that we've created a project, the first thing we are going to do is initialize Git into the project. And how do we do that? We open our integrated terminal into VS Code, which you can do that by coming here. And how do we do that? Let's first of all seed into the repository to GitHub and type in Git in it. What this command just does is it initializes Git into our repository. So this makes Git aware that we are trying to track the files in this our project. So next thing, first to check all what we have been able to track in our Git repository, we can type in this command Git status. Then when we type in this command, we see we are on branch master. This concept we should be discussing later in the video. No commit yet, and all what this is just trying to tell us is we haven't committed these files into GitHub, into Git rather. And for us to add those files into GitHub, you can type in this wildcard command. There are different ways which you can do it. You can either add these files individually or we can just add them as a bulk. And for us to do that, we can just type in this command git add space period. And once you type in enter, we can also come back and see git status. As you can see here, we see that all these files have been tracked as opposed to what we have initially over here. You can see that they were all red, but now they are all green. What this just means is we have tracked these files, we have added them into our Git memory. And the next command which we'll be doing is the git commit -m and into quotes committed initial files and press enter. So what this message just does is we will see in when we push into GitHub finally. Yeah, after committing these files, if you've paid attention, you notice that I made some mistakes in this, some typo errors, and it was intentional in the sense that I was trying to demonstrate how we can amend our commit messages. in our Git repository. And how do we do that? You can just come here and say git commit dash m, then into quotes committed our initial files, then come here and put in dash dash amend. Yep. And finally, what's left for us to do is to push this our project into GitHub. And for us to do that, we need to create the Git repository in GitHub. And we just come here in our GitHub account, create a new project, come to this tab over here, repository, create new, click new, or we can come here and see intro to GitHub. And yeah, and these configurations below here just to do some settings in our Git repository. And what this visibility just means is if you were to leave it as public, that means everybody will be able to access it. And if we were to choose private, it's just us that will be able to access it and the people that we allow. But in this instance, we'll be treating it as a public. And this add readme file is just a document that adds additional information. If you're trying to like just tell a message to anybody that wants to clone our repository, this is where we can put in. This is where we add those information. And dot git ignore is a file that we use to tell Git that we don't want to push some certain files into GitHub, and which I'll be demonstrating in this video also later on in this video. And next thing, you can just click create repository. So after creating the repository, we'll get to see some commands which we can input into our terminal for us to push into this GitHub repository. And as you can see, we've done this git init, we've added our files, and we've also committed them. And the next thing we can do is add a branch into our repository. And the ways to do that, we can copy this command here. And what this just means is we're trying to create a branch named main into our GitHub repository. And once we click enter, we come back here and we copy this message. And what this git remote add origin just means is we're trying to connect our git locally into GitHub on the web. And once we type in this command here, once we paste this command here and press enter. So after adding the origin, which links our local git repository to GitHub, which is this command here, we need to copy this command here to push this into our main branch. And what this command just does is trying to say push our local git repository into GitHub in the main branch, right? The main branch that we created over here. So once we click enter now, this is the message we get. And if we come to our web and refresh this page, we should get our GitHub repository over here. And if you open this, you figure out that this is the same thing we have here. And if you open our program.cs, this is the same thing. So that's practically how to push an existing or your project into GitHub. It's simple and straightforward. Let's move over to other concepts. So before we move to the concept of branches in Git and GitHub, let's say, for example, you made changes to this file over here, and let's say we made changes and we see this is a new line added to track it. Let's say, for example, you're trying to push this latest update you've added to your program.cs file. All we just need to do is go through this process that we've done initially. And how do we do that? You can just come in here and type in git status, and you can see in these messages down here, you can see that we've modified. Git already tells us that we modified the program.cs file. I can also see it from the terminal over here. You can see this green bar that just tell you, even from ID, you can tell that okay, we've already added changes into our repository. Likewise, if we were to add other line of code, you see that this bar increased also. So for us to push this latest change into GitHub, go through the same process all over again, and we can see its status. Now that we've checked the status of our current Git repository, and you can see this message over here, you can see that Git already tells us that we modified this program.cs file. We can individually add a file to GitHub rather than having to use this git add dot period. This period is just to add, although it's going to work, but I'm just trying to like tell you a different ways by which you can add a file. Since in this instance we just changed a single file, we can come here and say git add name of file, which is program.cs, and which is going to work also. And when we add it, that works. Then you can git commit -m out message updated the program.cs file. Then you click enter. Then after committing it, for us to push into our GitHub repository, you can just press the up key on our keyboard. You can come back to this git push -u origin main and push this. You can see it has successfully been pushed. And you come to our Git repository, and when you refresh, you see that this file has been updated. Capish is as straightforward as that. Now let's discuss the concept of branches and the way branches work in Git is such. It creates a photocopy of our main or working branch into a new branch, such that we don't have to disrupt the initial workings of the main branch. And what do I mean by that is, let us just demonstrate that. And for us to create a new branch in Git, we just come to our terminal and type in git branch, then name of branch. Let's call it new branch. So do you know that you can type anything you want, but for the sake of this demonstration, this is what I'm using for this example. Git branch, new branch. That's the name of our branch. And for us to switch into that branch, come here and type git switch new branch and press enter. So now we can come to our program.cs file and make any changes we can into the file. And let's say this is a new line added to track git in new branch, and let me just name it new branch. So now for us to push this new branch into GitHub, it still follows the same process that we've done initially in pushing our main branch. The only difference is just pushing into the name of the new branch as opposed to pushing into the main branch. And the way we can do that is we can just come here and say git add period, and we can say git commit -m, our commit message, which is added a new branch named new branch, present tab, and finally git push origin. Then do note the name of the branch, which is new branch. Then if you are not sure of the name of the branch, you can just come here and say git branch. This command just lists out the number of branches that we have working currently in our local Git or working in our local machine. You can just come here and say git push origin new branch and press enter. So after pushing into GitHub, we come into our Git repository. Just ignore this message for now. This is more of like an advanced concept. It's not so hard, but it's beyond the scope of this project. We'll be discussing it in another video. If I were to refresh this repository now, I will come down here. You can see that now we have a new branch. And if you click on this new branch, if you open the program.cs file, you can see that we have this line of code, which reflects here also. So now, to show that there is a difference, if we were to come back here and navigate back into this main branch and open this file, you can see that this final line of code is not in this file over here. And initially I said we're not going to discuss the pull request. However, we're going to be doing that. I just want us to follow another method, which is having to merge into branches using the command line. So now that we've pushed a new branch into GitHub, let's discuss the concept of merge in Git. And merge, like the name suggests, is to bring two things together. So in the context of Git or GitHub, we're trying to bring in two branches into together. So in this context, we're trying to merge the new branch. That means this new line of code that we've created in line 5 into the main branch. So if we were to check out into our main branch, you figure out that when we check out into our main branch, you figure out that this line will disappear because it is not in that branch that we made these changes in the file. So if we were to type in this command, for us to switch into um, the main branch, you can just come here and say git switch, then the name of the branch main. When we type in this command, you can see that this line 5 disappeared. So for us to merge it, for us to merge that new line into the main branch, you can just come into this, you can just type this command in our terminal, git merge, then the merge message, um, merge new branch into main, then type in the name of the branch, which is new branch. As you can see, you get these messages down here, and you can see that this has been added into our main branch. So if you type in git status, everything has been added. Or we just need to this, we just need to push this latest commit into our main branch. So we can just come here and say git push origin main. So after pushing, if we were to refresh this page, if you remember correctly, we're in the main branch in GitHub here. If we were to refresh this page, figure out that this has now been added into our main branch. So that's basically the concept of merging in simple terms. Straightforward, simple. Now let's discuss the concept of git ignore. And what git ignore just does is it lets us, it's a file that tells git to ignore some certain things or some certain files in our git repository. And how do we do that? Come to your project directory over here and create a file. Make sure you type this command as is dot git ignore and press enter. So let's say in our um in our folder here, we have a file named private key.txt and press enter. We can just type in some random commands. Or just say I don't want this to added added to my git repository in GitHub. So we can just come into this git ignore and type in this command, type in this asterisk.txt. So what this just means is git is going to ignore every file that ends with txt. It's not going to be pushed into our GitHub repository. So if we were to come to our GitHub repository, you see that there's no txt file, and we also don't have the .ignore file. Now come back to GitHub. Since we've already added this line over here, when we push these latest changes into GitHub, we figure out that this file is not going to be added into our GitHub. And how do we do that? We just, likewise as we've done initially, and just come here and say git add git commit -m added, let's git ignore file. Then we push git push origin main, enter. And if we were to come to our repository and refresh, you see that we've added this .git ignore file. And please do pay attention that the .txt file doesn't exist here. So if you were to open this, figure that we have this line here, and which just tells us that you don't want Git to track changes or anything that ends with .txt file. So to show that it actually works, if we were to remove this here, and let's say we made changes into this file, new changes, enter. And also for us to push the latest changes in our Git repository, like we've done all this while. You can just come down here, git add. So you can just use your up arrow key to navigate to your previous commands that you've added or that you've used in your terminal. You can see git commit added text to GitHub, then push origin main. When we press this, if we were to come to our repository here, we figure out that we have this private key.txt file. So basically what this just means is the .git ignore file tells Git to ignore wherever file we specify in the .git ignore file, basically. So this is so all what you've done previously using Visual Studio Code. This is that you can simulate the same, that is creating a Git repository and pushing to GitHub. using Visual Studio. Now, for us to do that, we're going to create a new project. Then click Console App, or you can either search a console and create Console App. And next, then choose a name Intro GitHub Visual Studio. Then create the next bottom right. Then click Create bottom right. So for us to interact with Git and GitHub using Visual Studio, it's quite straightforward in the sense that we don't have to type some command at the time now. Although we can do that as well, but we're trying to teach another method if you are using Visual Studio. So the way for us to push to GitHub using Visual Studio, you just come to the bottom right of your screen. You will see Git changes over here. Then right above that, you can see create Git repository. And let's click on create Git repository. Then you see some dialog boxes, some settings over here. Uh, you will see the location of the project you're trying to create in your machine. Then you have the .git ignore that we talked about earlier, and the GitHub repository or the GitHub account that is connected to this Visual Studio. If you're not connected to a GitHub account, I think when you click create Git repository, there should be a dialog for you to like sign in to your GitHub account. Then over here we have the you can also edit the name, what you want to name the repository. However, I'm going to just leave it as this, and visibility, which is choosing either you want the public or private, that is to choose whoever you want to access the repository. But for this demonstration, we'll be using the public. So for us to initialize, commit, and also push into GitHub using Visual Studio, this is as straightforward as this. All we just need to do is create this. We just need to click this button over here, create and push. So after clicking create and push, right, the whole process is going on, and I'm currently signed in into this account. Um, I don't suggest you get this, but why I'm getting it is because I'm signed into two GitHub accounts. But anyways, if you get it, just choose the corresponding GitHub account. As you can see, we've gotten this success message here and over here also. So if I were to go to my account and come here, click on repositories, as you can see, the repo has been created. So now let us demonstrate updating this current file in GitHub. So if you were to open this program.cs file, you see that we currently have just a single line of code, which is the console.write line, hello world. We were to come down here and duplicate this line, Control D, latest updates in the program.cs file, and save it. All you need to do is just in case this git changes terminal is not open, you can just come down here, click this git changes over here. Then for you to push to your branch, which is currently the master branch, we have to write a message, update program.cs file, and you click this button and commit all. And for you to push the latest update, you have to come over here to this button here, click this button, push, select the account, and you can see this successful message over here. And if I were to refresh this page, if I were to refresh this, we should get the updated file. So now let's discuss the concept of branches in using the dialog boxes in Visual Studio. So for you to create another branch in Visual Studio, all you just have to do is come down here and click new branch. After clicking this drop down, click new branch. So let's name this new branch. As you can see, it's going to say based on the master branch, which is our main branch here. And make sure this box is ticked, which is we want to check out to this new branch. So click create. So let's duplicate this line and see latest updates in the program.cs file in the new branch. Save this and let's commit updates. Let's commit this new branch and let's push it to GitHub. Updates to program.cs in the new branch. Then commit all. After committing, we push this into GitHub and select this. So after pushing to that new branch, as you can see over here, we get this successful dialog message over here. Successfully push new branch to origin. Pull request either in Visual Studio. So let's click Visual Studio. Then we should be able to get this dialog over here. Let me just expand this. Be able to get this dialog over here. And you should see this button create. After creating, you should get this successful message. Then if we were to switch branches and come back to our master, we'll see that this line number 4 will disappear. So if I switch that, it's no longer there. Then I need to pull the latest updates which have pushed and also merged into the master branch remotely. So you come over here and click on this button here, click manage branches. Then see this new branch here, right click on this and you see this option here, merge new branch into master. So remember that the file in this, the program file doesn't have the latest updates from the new branch. Then if we were to come here and right click and merge new branch into master, if we were to click this and you see this dialog over here, merge, and if we were to come back to this program.c as well, you see that's finally gotten this updates over here. Then yeah, that's pretty much it when trying to interact with Git and GitHub using Visual Studio.